Let me start with a question today, a very simple question. What do you call a man who is invited into your home as a healer and allegedly leaves as the man who took everything? What do you call a man who sits across from a husband and wife in their most broken, most vulnerable season, learns every secret, every wound, every crack in the foundation of their marriage, and then allegedly uses every single one of those cracks for himself? I'll tell you what people are calling him. They're calling him a snake. And his name is Doug Weiss. Today, we are talking about the allegations. And I want to be clear, these are allegations that are surrounding the fall of one of the most powerful families in Christian television, the Lamb family, founders of Daystar Television Network, and the man that many believe walked into that family as a counselor and walked out with the wife, the ministry, and the inheritance. Buckle up. This one is going to shake you. Here's what you need to understand about how a predator operates. He doesn't break down the door. He doesn't force his way in. He waits to be invited. He makes himself necessary. He shows up when you are bleeding, when you are desperate, when your marriage is on its last thread, and he says, I can help. That is allegedly exactly what Doug Weiss did. Marcus and Joni Lamb had a complicated marriage. Marcus had affairs. The family nearly fell apart. And in that season of crisis, Doug Weiss, a counselor who specializes in marriage recovery and sexual addiction, was brought in, trusted, given access. He didn't just sit in a therapy room. He sat inside their lives. He knew the intimate details of their struggles. He knew Joni's pain. He knew her loneliness. He knew exactly where she was hurting. And people are now asking, was that knowledge used to heal her or to pursue her? Because what is being alleged by commenters, by family insiders, by people close to this situation is deeply disturbing. The allegation, and I want to say it plainly, is that Doug Weiss was not just Joni's counselor. People are alleging that Doug Weiss was sleeping with Joni Lamb while Marcus Lamb was still alive. Let that land. Not after Marcus died, while he was alive, while Marcus Lamb was sitting in that same house, while he was trusting this man with his marriage. While he was fighting for his life in the hospital, it is alleged that the affair was already happening. And if that is true, and I want to be careful, these are allegations, but if that is true, then we are not talking about a love story that bloomed too quickly after a tragedy. We are talking about a betrayal that was already in motion before the tragedy.
God was just so faithful. I said to him, I said, well, Lord, am I going to be by myself? Or, are you going to bring someone into my life? Because Marcus had told me, I don't know how many times, if I go before you, I would want you to get remarried.
Now, let me show you why people aren't just making this up. Because the timeline is what keeps bringing people back to these allegations. November 2021, Marcus Lamb dies. January 2022, 58 days later, 58 days, Doug Weiss files for divorce from Lisa Weiss, his wife of over 30 years. A woman he himself described in his own recordings as a faithful wife, a good mother, a great woman. She was begging him to stay, on her knees, begging, and he left her anyway. 58 days after Marcus was in the ground. Now, I want you to think about something. Divorce is not something you decide in 58 days. Lawyers don't move that fast. Hearts don't move that fast. The emotional and legal machinery of ending a 30-year marriage doesn't start in 58 days. It starts before. People are saying the decision had already been made. The relationship had already been established. And Marcus's death didn't start something between Doug and Joni. It simply freed something that was allegedly already there. One commenter with 116 likes, so this resonated with a lot of people, said it like this. She was happy because she and that man were already in contact with each other. They were already lusting for each other. Especially, he knew her weakness because he counseled them when they were having marriage problems. He knew every intimate detail of their lives, and when Marcus Lamb died in November 2021, the opening appeared. Because here is the chilling part of this allegation. One commenter noted that Doug Weiss was at the hospital before Marcus Lamb died. He was reportedly the first one at the funeral home, allegedly saying, I want to make sure Marcus is still in his coffin. Who says that at a funeral? Who says that? Jonathan Lamb, Marcus's own son, reportedly flagged this, and people are asking, why was this man so present, so positioned, so ready in those final hours? I'm not making accusations. I'm telling you what people who were there are saying. And the picture they're painting is of a man who wasn't grieving alongside the family. He was moving into position. Now let me tell you about the real victims in this story, because there are several. Lisa Weiss, a faithful wife of over 30 years, did nothing wrong, begging her husband to stay. Left behind so Doug could walk toward Joni. She is a casualty of this story that most people aren't even talking about. Marcus Lamb. If these allegations are true, this man trusted Doug Weiss with his marriage, with his wife, with the most vulnerable parts of his life, and was allegedly being betrayed the entire time. He died never knowing, or perhaps we'll never know what he knew. And then there is Jonathan Lamb. Oh, Jonathan, this young man. Jonathan grew up inside Daystar. He gave his career to it. He was the successor, the next generation. By all accounts, Marcus himself intended Jonathan to carry the ministry forward. But when Doug Weiss came into the picture, Jonathan said no. He couldn't do it. He opposed the relationship on theological grounds, on biblical grounds, as a son who had watched his father's affairs nearly destroy the family. And now here comes the counselor who was supposed to help them heal, allegedly positioning himself as the replacement. Jonathan saw it. He named it. He stood firm. And Joni fired him. November 2024, Jonathan Lamb, the heir to Daystar, was terminated from the ministry his father built. And when Joni Lamb died in May 2026, Jonathan was not called to say goodbye to his own mother. The snake didn't just take the wife. The allegations are that he took the ministry, the succession, and the family. All of it, yes? Or was she a willing participant in something that she knew was wrong and chose anyway? Because the allegations cut both ways. On one hand, Joni was a woman who had been through decades of pain in her marriage. Affairs, heartbreak, public humiliation. She stayed, she forgave, and then she lost her husband. She was exhausted in ways most of us will never understand. And if Doug Weiss was there, consistent, warm, attentive, I can understand how a wounded woman could fall. But on the other hand, Joni fired her own son for objecting. She removed the succession plan her husband built. She handed the platform that Marcus spent 40 years constructing to a man who had been married to someone else when Marcus took his last breath. Those are not the decisions of someone who didn't know what they were doing. And so perhaps the most honest answer is this: Joni Lamb may have been both. A woman manipulated by a predator who also made choices that enabled the destruction. God sees both, and God will judge both. The comments on this story tell you everything about how the body of Christ is processing this. Jonathan and Susie could not support Joni's adulterous marriage with Doug. This marriage destroyed everything and has nothing to do with God. Daystar is doomed. This man is a monster. He just came to eat what he did not sow. He came to destroy what Marcus built. He is not even ashamed. How can God give someone who is still married? He was processing a divorce. And this one hit me hard. I have always thought the death of Marcus had nefarious circumstances. Secrets, lies, and cover-up after cover-up seem to indicate smoke. And where there is smoke, there is fire almost every time. Thousands of people saying the same thing in different ways, with different words, but landing in the same place. This doesn't smell right. This has never smelled right. And the cover-ups, the blocked investigations, the polygraph tests paraded on social media, the silencing of Jonathan, have only made the smoke thicker. Family, I want to bring this home, because as painful as this story is, it carries a warning that every single church, every single ministry, every single Christian family needs to hear. Be careful who you let into your house. Not just into your building, not just into your pulpit, into your house, into your marriage. Into the private rooms where you are most broken and most vulnerable. A wolf doesn't always come with fangs showing. Sometimes he comes with a degree on the wall and a soft voice and a Bible verse on his lips. Sometimes he is the one you called when you were desperate. The enemy is not always a stranger. In this story, if the allegations are true, the enemy was the counselor. And the church has to stop treating professional Christian credentials as a substitute for character. Doug Weiss built a career on helping people recover from sexual addiction and marriage breakdown. And the allegations being made against him are that he exploited the very people he was supposed to heal. That is not just a personal failure. That is a spiritual predation. And it has a name. The Bible calls it wolves in sheep's clothing. And Jesus didn't say they might appear. He said they will. He warned us. Matthew chapter 7. He said, you will know them by their fruits. Look at the fruit of this situation. A 30-year marriage destroyed. Lisa Weiss left behind. A son was fired from his father's ministry. A mother who died without saying goodbye to her child. A billion-dollar Christian network in turmoil. And a family scattered to the wind. Those are the fruits. You decide what kind of tree produces them. I want to end with something important. Jonathan Lamb, wherever you are, the people of God see you. The people who are paying attention know what you did. You stood up when it cost you everything. You said no when saying yes would have been easier. You honored your father's memory and your convictions, even when your own mother removed you for it. That is not a weakness. That is the kind of integrity that God rewards, even when man punishes it. And to the Daystar family, the faithful viewers, the staff, the people who gave to that ministry, believing in the gospel it carried, your confusion and your grief are valid. You were not foolish for believing. You were simply trusting people who were supposed to be trustworthy. Keep your eyes on Jesus, not in the institution, not on the personality, on Jesus. Because he is the only one who never betrays, never exploits, never positions himself over your grief for personal gain. He is the shepherd, not the wolf. If this episode resonated with you, share it. Someone in your circle needs to hear this warning. Subscribe, because this conversation is not over. There is more to this story, and we are going to keep following it together. Until next time, stay watchful, stay rooted, and keep asking the hard questions. God bless you. I'll see you next time.